Greetings, geeks worldwide. Welcome to another episode of the Geekside podcast. I'm your host, Darth Sparrow, and I'm excited to be back for another round of our very own unique brand of truth, justice, and the geek way. As always, I'm joined with one of my beautiful co-hosts and amazing friends, the lovely Mrs. Christina Walker. What's up, Christina?
Just waiting for this baby.
I was gonna ask you what's the latest and greatest on the growing the human saga.
Well, due date is getting there really soon. Yes. Still haven't figured out a name yet because we're really on top of that. It's hard. Naming a human's really hard.
Yeah. How do you just easily pick something that's going to be stuck with somebody for their entire life? You know.
That's exactly it.
It's a big responsibility.
I can name D&D characters. I can name fictional characters for short stories I've written, but God help me if I try to name an actual human child. I can't do it.
I mean, you can name random things like stuffed animals and your favorite hairbrush, but human, whole nother level.
I actually name things that are inanimate, so that makes no sense. I can't name this kid, but I will say that naming her, like the temptation to name her Sky, is very high.
Yes,
it's super high, but I won't do that to her.
She'd love you so much, Mom.
Disown me as soon as she can talk.
Yeah, she's like, wait, you're the one that gave me this? I hate you. Die. That's so fun, friend. I'm so excited for you. It's getting ever closer.
Possibly the next time I do the show, she might be here.
Christina, I will happily say, okay, people might not believe me, but I think I'm definitely more excited about your upcoming little one than I am about Infinity War, and they both come this month, so you'll be happy to know that.
Infinity War might be a little cooler, but
we'll see. That's subjective. I'm excited you're here, my friend, because tonight we have one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite people that we've had on the show quite a few times now. And it's funny because he posted about it on Facebook today that it was almost a year to the date last year that he was on at this time when we were still under the Capes Crew flag. But now we're on this show and he's back once again. And we love every time he's on because he tells us the coolest stories about not only the book that he writes and illustrates, but other amazing things about the haunted history of one of the most famous towns in the world. We're talking about Chi-Town, Chicago. And of course, we're talking about my friend, my good buddy, the one, the only, Mr. Scott Larson of Visitations comic book. Scott, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hi, thanks a lot for having me back.
Buddy, what's been going on, man? What's new in your world?
I got the phone call from you today, and I was having a hard time getting online because I was reading the brand new Visitations coloring book that's available right now on Amazon.
That's pretty. or they can make it pretty themselves, right?
Yeah, they can. Actually, the person who was the model for the Nellie McCullough character in the book actually bought it off Amazon and colored it and then posted it all over social media. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, Scott, are you allowed to say who modeled for Nellie?
Yes. Okay. Hold on, I need to remember her name now. It was a Chicago actress who is now in New Orleans, I believe, and her name is Paige Wood Riley.
Okay. Where did you come across this lovely person who modeled for Nellie?
Well, she was there's an art club that I belong to called the Palette and Chisel Academy of Fine Arts, and they have open studios on drawing and painting and sculpting. And I was taking a class on sculpting, and she was the model for that. And actually, this was what I sculpted of her a couple of years ago.
That's cool, Scott. That's really cool.
And she was doing some kind of a steampunk thing. She was modeling in like a steampunk outfit a couple of years ago. And when I went to draw her at this other place, she was actually wearing the outfit that Nellie McCullough is wearing. And she kind of kickstarted the whole idea because what she did was she gave me a place to put a frame of reference, a time period to put the characters in.
Right.
And so when I came up with the story, the first thing I thought about was her and what a great character she would make. And so that's how it all ended up at the turn of the century.
Yeah, absolutely. Christina, did you have a question? You look like you did.
Oh no, no. Not yet. Not yet.
I was like, is the itchy nose a symbol for questions?
Usually, yes.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out a link. Sorry.
Yes. No, that's okay. So Scott, maybe for people that are listening to you on our show for the first time or have never heard you talk at all and maybe have seen your stuff, what inspired Visitations?
Well, before I talk about that, I'll let you know what Visitations is. Visitations is a comic book series that I came up with. It's the history of Chicago as seen by the residents of the city's oldest cemetery. And so it basically starts at the turn of the century and it'll go to present day or however long I live, whichever comes first. And the way I came up with the story, I mentioned the outfit that Paige was wearing and the whole steampunk thing. But what had happened was there's a cemetery in Chicago here called Graceland Cemetery, not to be confused with where Elvis is buried.
Not that Graceland.
Graceland is supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the city of Chicago. Although I went there because I found out that I had some relatives, some ancestors actually, the first Larsons who came to the United States from Sweden, and they were buried there. And I found out this whole like weird backstory to the family that no one ever knew. And so I went to the cemetery to go and visit the grave sites. And when I was there, I saw all these really cool monuments. And in the course of looking at the monuments, my ancestors actually didn't have any kind of tombstones or anything. And so I found this place called, I'm drawing a complete blank tonight. You're asking me all these hard questions. I don't know how to answer any of them. I went to this place that makes monuments.
Okay.
Ghast monuments is what it's called.
Okay.
And the person who ran the place was like this 5th generation family. This family has been doing these monuments in Chicago for like a century. And so when I met with her, I became friends with her, and I became friends with her on Facebook. And she started posting all this weird stuff on Facebook. Yeah. One of the things was you could be buried naked and sprout into a tree after you die. And another one was the 5 creepiest tombstones in the world. Okay. And there were things in there like somebody busting out of a tomb and a man holding a face and all these things. And something about it resonated with me because I went to bed one night, and when I got up the next day, the story for the first issue was in my head. And a lot of the characters are based kind of on the monuments that were in that article.
Yeah, right. That's I had a funny question, Scott, that's kind of related to what you were just talking about. Did you ever ask, since you got kind of close with the family who ran the monument company, did you ever ask like how one kind of goes into the business? I know there were like several generations, but like is there people who just go, you know what, I want to make funeral monuments? Do they just kind of
Well, they had started back in the 1800s, probably right after the Civil War.
Right.
Was when that family started doing that. And I don't think that there were a whole lot of businesses to go into. Kind of the first thing that pops into my head is Back to the Future 3, where there was like the tombstones that were made and all lined up. I assume it was probably something like that.
It kind of started that way, just kind of progressed and got a little more ornate and sculptural and things like that.
Yeah, and it's actually a famous place. Besides the Chicago cemeteries, they also have something. It's not at the Washington Monument, but it's in one of the monuments in Washington D.C. Yeah. And she told me what it was, and I can't remember exactly. I can't even remember the name of the place. Yeah. But she told me about that, and so they've done different kinds of sculptures and monuments all over the country.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, man. Scott, you sent me the PDF for Visitations 3, and of course I want to talk about that because that's the newest book that just came out, correct? Besides the coloring book.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about, because one of my favorite things that you do with your books is you imbibe a lot of history, especially of Chicago, into your stories. And so talk a little bit about Visitations Book 3 and kind of what it focuses on.
Well, in order to do that, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk
please.
a little bit about the series in general.
Yeah.
The series, basically, all of the issues are set up to focus on a different character. And it's, like I mentioned, the characters are based on different monuments. And there were different things that I wanted to do when I started out. And like with the first issue, it's an introduction to the characters. The second issue was called The Great Balloon Disaster. And it just sounded like a cool name. And then I just kind of made it up as I was working on it. Yeah. The third one is Mayhem in the Levee. And it was a very uncomfortable story to work on. Yeah. And the reason why is this: when I talk about Visitations, I usually describe it as history and horror and all kinds of things like that. So it branches off into different things. It's kind of a superhero book. Sometimes it's kind of a horror book. Yeah. And with Mayhem in the Levee, the Levee district in Chicago was a real place, and it was the notorious red light district that was on the near south side of Chicago. It was just right off of downtown. And it's the area is actually where organized crime got its start. As a matter of fact, this weekend is C2E2. Yeah. And C2E2 is being held in a place called McCormick Place. And in order to get to McCormick Place, if you're taking the L train from downtown or wherever, you have to get off at a place called Cermak Chinatown. And Cermak Chinatown, that particular L stop, you have to like walk down like 22nd Street, which is now Cermak Road. But 22nd Street used to be where the levee was. Wow. And last year, it's not just where the levee was, it's where all the gangsters were as well. So the levee closed before Al Capone took over Chicago, but his headquarters at the Lexington Hotel was about 2 blocks away from where the center of the levee was. And so last year when I was walking to McCormick Place, I realized exactly where I was. I was just like, oh my God. And so I'm like taking pictures. The Lexington Hotel was torn down a number of years ago, but it was replaced by like a condo building called the Lex, and I recognized the name. So I started taking pictures, and I was asking people on the street, is that where Al Capone used to be? Is that where and so the area itself still exists, although the crime element isn't there, or if it is, it's very well hidden. Yeah. And the story itself, there were a couple of reasons why I decided to do this. The first one was, you kind of write about things that you experience if you're a writer. And when I was 19 years old, I was walking down the street thinking about Batman, and this woman came up to me and she asked me if I wanted a date, and I had no clue what she meant. And then she started talking to me, and then she realized I had no money, and she told me I couldn't be dating without money, and she like walked away. And I realized when that happened, oh, that's what she meant. Yeah. And so I was very curious. It's like, well, why would someone do something like this? Right. And if you're a single male or even a married male in a big city, you tend to, this stuff tends to find you whether you want it to or not. Right. And, it's, I've been approached several times, whether it was in bars or on the street, and it's not even, it doesn't matter what kind of a neighborhood you're in. You could be in the best neighborhood in the world. You could be in the worst neighborhood, and it's there. But the thing about it that I was very curious of is like, why are you doing this? Is it just fun for you to go and do this? Is there another reason why you're doing this? And I was approached in a bar once, and I asked the person, and and this was about a decade ago, and she told me that she had lived in Wisconsin. She went home with some guy. He gave her a drink, and she woke up in Chicago. Wow. And that's how she got started in the business. She was broke. She was going down to the train station to try to beg money from people. All the while she was still doing her prostitution thing. And it was scary. It was one of those moments where I was talking to this person and I could feel like a chill running up and down my spine. And it was like, if ever I had a spider sense, it was that moment, because it was like, get out of there, get away from this person. Right. And it's just, it's one of those things where one of the things with guys is guys tend to look at stuff. And when guys gather in a group, if they talk about something like this, it becomes, oh, it's a victimless crime. It doesn't mean anything. Oh, we're just having fun, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's going to a strip joint, whatever. Yeah. And the thing with prostitution and with human trafficking is it's not a victimless crime at all. Yeah. And so the experiences that I had with merely a person coming up and talking to me really touched me. And so this story was actually born in like 1989. And it took a while for it to come out, and it wasn't really, I didn't quite know how I was going to tell it or if I would ever tell it. But since I'm dealing with a piece of Chicago's history, and because that's such a big part of its history in that particular era, there's a lady named Karen Abbott who wrote a book called Sin in the Second City. And it deals with that era, and it deals with the levee in a place called the Everly Club. And the Everly Club was a famous brothel. And I read her book, and one of the things in the book that really hit me was it said that the average life of a prostitute who was entering the business was about 5 years. And they were either used up and thrown out, or they ended up in jail, or they died. Yeah. And it's a scary thing. It's a really scary thing. So, Visitations is a horror book. And in this particular case, the horror was humanity. It wasn't about ghosts. It wasn't about getting scared. If you're scared and uncomfortable reading Visitations 3, then I did my job right. It's not something I advocate. It's not something I would ever do, but it's something that concerns me, because you're dealing with human beings. Right. And even if somebody was doing it willingly, there's still a part of themselves that they're leaving behind, for lack of a better way to put it. And so that's kind of how that all came about. And then the other part of it was, there is a TV show called The Untouchables. There were several ones. There was a movie, there were a couple TV shows, but there was one in the 1990s that was a syndicated show. And they had an episode about the levee, even though the levee had closed like 20 years before the show was supposed to take place. And it was another thing that really kind of opened up my eyes when I saw the show, because I think that some of the stuff in the book I kind of borrowed from that particular episode. But it was the first time I found out what that was. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or what that area was, sure. Or that I had even heard of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like you said, Scott. It was definitely a very chilling issue in a very different way, just because of the subject matter and what it dealt with. Christina, did you have a question, friend?
I do, but I wanted to wait until we talked a little bit more about the comic. It was going to go long. I guess I could ask now.
Yes.
I guess while doing this particular story, how much emotion of your own did you have to either suppress or put into it, or how do you navigate that? I know for me, if it was like me doing the story, I would have a hard time because of the subject matter. So I guess, yeah. That would be my question.
I don't know if it was necessarily emotion, with the exception of an uncomfortable feeling, but a lot of the things that happened in the story, with the exception of going into a brothel, because I've never been in a brothel, but there's a scene right at the beginning where the person is walking through the levee, and and I need to mention also with the story, it's a point of view story. Yeah. So you never see the face of the main character in it. Right. It's just an anonymous person. The person doesn't even have a name. He's called you. And right away there's a scene with this woman who's kind of leaning against the lamppost, and she's trying to like solicit him, and she smiles and she's missing like her front teeth, and I actually saw that.
Yeah.
I was coming home from work one night. I was working 2 jobs, and I was like, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and that I experienced that. I saw that. And so a lot of the stuff that was in there is stuff I had actually seen. So it wasn't necessarily an emotional thing for me as it was kind of recording my own observations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, Scott, as well, because I definitely I really thought it was an interesting way to tell the story. It was basically from a first person. I guess to say the character is not really that important, but I guess that character could be a number of people, and like you said, that's big cities, small cities, bad towns, good towns. These things are happening. These things are going on. So I thought it was a really very profound way to tell this story and to get some of those points across.
Well, when I was doing it, I kind of, again, it was my personal observations.
Yeah.
I mean, not all of it. There's a scene in a bar where there's a singer in the bar who gets into a fight with somebody, and it's a male waiter singer, and he's based on the Chicago crime boss Dion O'Banion, who was the precursor to Bugs Moran.
Okay.
And that was the Chicago North Side Gang. So there's like little things like that I sprinkled in, but I never saw my own face when I was getting approached.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a book called Bright Lights, Big City, and it was a movie with Michael J. Fox like way back in the 80s. And the book is interesting because the main character in the book doesn't have a name. And it's you through the entire book. And so I borrowed that as well because I kind of liked it. I thought it was a real neat way to tell a story. And in fact, the first lines of the story, I were inspired by the first lines in the book Bright Lights, Big City.
Okay, I gotcha. Now Scott, what was interesting is how you kind of tied this story in with the rest of the universe that you've created in Visitations, and there was a big event that kind of was the catalyst for that with one of the main characters in this story. That was a real event that took place in Chicago history, was it not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in fact, the thing that happens within that event, involving the little girl, was a true story.
Wow.
That actually happened. Yeah. I don't know about the girl's parents or siblings or anything like that, but that what happened to that little girl really happened. It was in a book called it was originally called Gem of the Prairie, and that became Gangs of Chicago after the movie Gangs of New York came out, because both books were written by the same guy. But almost everything in this particular story was real. Yeah. The story Visitations 2 I made up.
Yeah.
And the only thing real was the balloon race, which was called the White City Balloon Race. That was real, and everything else was just made up. Yes. This particular story, almost everything in the story was real. It might have been shifted around, it might have been moved around, whether it was things that I personally saw or things I got out of books. Almost everything in there was real.
Yeah, and it definitely adds to the tone of the story of this issue, and it's very dark and gritty, and like you said, the very dark sides of humanity that we still deal with today, and it definitely brought that to light. Tell me a little bit about the art style you chose for this issue.
That's actually something that evolved a little bit because there's a little bit of time travel in the story. The story starts out in the 1920s. And you start to see the second generation of Visitations characters. Yeah. And so you've got the characters from the turn of the century, and then you have like new characters coming in 20 years later. And so there's a whole nother story that's about to take place. But I wanted the story from the 1920s to look very Art Deco-y.
Yeah.
And the Art Deco-y story was kind of reflected. There's a series of posters which are Chicago for the Visitor. And they're like from 1924, 1925, and they're real Art Deco-y. And so I kind of base the style on that. Once it goes into the story and it goes into the turn of the century, I wanted to use, my wife and I went to, there's this museum downtown Chicago, and they had a bunch of, political cartoons from the turn of the century. And they were done with this real neat cross-hatching style. And I really like that. And so I thought that that would be a really neat art style for the story. But then when you start to flash back from there, I tried to get a sense of what like vaudevillian type posters looked like.
Right.
And so that's how and then there's a scene, excuse me, a part where it's straight black and white, and I wanted it to be straight black and white. It was almost like an ode to Frank Miller's Sin City.
Okay.
And that's what I was thinking of while I was working on that.
Yeah.
I definitely got that vibe.
Yes. Scott, I hope you don't take this as an offense, because I really like it. Some of it reminded me of the illustrations in the. Do you ever get the Trader Joe's flyer? Do you have Trader Joe's?
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Trader Joe's flyer.
Or the bags.
Yes. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned it.
The Fearless Flyer, because I love looking at those stupid things when we get them in the mail, and a lot of it is because of the artwork. I'm like, I love these guys. I love these guys with their old timey like bicycles and things like that. And the story definitely lended itself well to that art style, and it really just kind of goes to the next level of transporting you and immersing you in that time period, which I thought was amazing, man. Amazing.
Oh, thanks. The other thing about that particular style is it's kind of dirty looking.
Yeah.
And I chose it for that reason as well, because the colors I used there were kind of like this dirty green color, and I thought it just kind of fit in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. What tell us a little bit, because I know there's some things that kind of bookend this issue for the overall story. Is there any little tidbits you can give us about what's happening there?
I'm going to ask you to be a little clearer on that question.
Well, let's talk about the end then, because I know there's we'll call him the big bad of the story, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you give us a little bit of details about where he's at and what's happening, what he's doing? We'll call him the collector for now. He's collecting things.
Well, his name is Bajardo.
Yes, Bajardo.
Bajardo or something like that.
Yes. I wasn't sure if it was Bajardo or Bajardo, but that's what I wanted to ask.
There's a story behind that, but I can't tell you yet.
Yes, I know.
As to who he is.
Yes.
But what he's doing is he's collecting different things.
Yes.
And so there's a couple of different stories going on. You have this Ghost Justice League kind of characters that are running around in the cemetery and protecting the city, and then you have like the Anti-Justice League or the Injustice League or whatever you want to call them in this particular thing.
The Legion of Doom.
Yeah, the Legion of Doom. Okay, so the Ghost Legion of Doom,
yes.
Which are a bunch of monuments that have been brought to life,
right.
And it's led by this guy named Bajardo, who knows the leader of the good guys, Clayton Blackwood, from somewhere. He knows him. He's had some kind of relationship with him from somewhere, and they're both collecting things. Yes. So they're both collecting cursed objects. If you will, kind of like Friday the 13th, the series, if you ever saw that.
Okay.
And Clayton Blackwood is collecting them because he wants to make sure that they're kept safe someplace. Yes. And Bajardo is collecting them because he wants to open up this whole Pandora's box and let them loose on the city. And if he destroys the city, he destroys the world, because Chicago, whereas it's not New York, it's certainly, especially in the turn of the century, had a lot of things that affected the entire country and by extension the world, like the stockyards and things of that nature. And even going to present day, Barack Obama was from Chicago. And so once things start changing and once these things are set loose, he can change history. and you'll see a little bit more of that in the next issue.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
But and I'm not going to say much more than that. And the next issue is going to be something completely different from here too, and I can talk to you about that in a second. But so he's collecting stuff. So he's after a pendant, which Nellie McCullough has. He has obtained the clock. He's obtained the feather, and he's obtained the thing that he got in issue 3. Right. And so he's planning to do something with them.
Interesting, sir. So tell us about what's next for issue 4.
So issue 4 is the Victrola of Doom.
Okay.
And it's like this issue started out in the 1920s. That one's gonna start out in the 1940s. And there's actually going to be a when it starts, and I'll tell you about this whenever I get it done, whether it's next year or after that, or before that. But the beginning bookends actually have a callback to an old 1940s Batman story.
Ooh, cool.
Or an ode to it, a tip of the hat to it, if you will. Yeah. And then the story inside there is going to be a painted story. It's going to be like, hold on a second, I can show you.
Painted stories are cool.
Yes.
I think most of our stories would start with talking about Batman and something like that, Christina.
Have you guys read this?
Yes.
This in particular is my favorite work by Alex Ross.
It's beautiful.
And so the story of Visitations #4 will be like this. I am going to be painting it. But in addition to that, there is an acting troupe in Chicago, and they're called Live. And what they do is they do a show, a comedy show, like an old time radio show. And so I'm talking to them about recording a version of the story as an old time radio show.
That's so cool.
The story's going to be two different things are going to be happening. There's going to be the painted story in which you get part of the story, you get enough of it, and there's going to be the free downloadable audio file, which will contain part of the story as well. So there'll be things in both versions that aren't in. There'll be things in the radio show which are not going to be in the painted book. There are things in the painted book which will not be in the radio show.
Wow!
But so to listen and to read, you get the full thing, but you'll be able to get the gist of it with both versions.
The mixed media thing is so cool, man.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if I can pull it off.
Yes.
You know, with all of this, it's like, I don't know how this is going to work. I had watched this interview with J.K. Rowling, and she was talking about as she was writing the Harry Potter books, and she said something along the lines of, as she's writing them, she's like, "Oh, this is rubbish, but the next one will be great." And that's kind of how I'm going about all of this, where it's like I'm in the middle of the story and I'm like, God, this thing sucks. I can't wait to get to the next one. So I'm thinking about the next one while I'm working on the present one, and I'm never happy with the present one ever.
Well, Scott, from a reader standpoint, this book is absolutely not rubbish, my friend.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, and I mean that sincerely. It's such a good book, man. Now you're gonna be at a convention this weekend, right? Tell the listeners about that in case you're in your area, man, and what you're gonna be doing there.
Well, I'm going to be at C2E2 here in Chicago, and that's a convention that's run by Reed Pop, and they do the New York convention and a bunch of other conventions. I will have a table there. I am going to be on a live feed from the Sci-Fi Network on Sunday morning at 11:15 Chicago time, I believe. And I can double check and let you know what that is. And it's going to be like 15 minutes. Myself and a Chicago ghost historian, because she doesn't like to be called Ghost Hunter, Amelia Cotter will be joining me with that. And we did it last year. Last year it was on Twitch.
Okay.
And so anybody who wants to see what we said last year, and they can see me like nervous in front of a camera like I was earlier tonight, that's on that is out there. That exists. And then we are also going to be giving a talk on Chicago cemeteries and ancient Indian burial grounds.
Ooh.
And so that will be the end of the day on Sunday, which I'm really glad that we're doing it. I kind of wish it was earlier than that, but that's the way it goes. The other thing is, so I'll have a table. I'll have issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, and the coloring book of Visitations. But there's also something else that I'm trying to accomplish here. I'll show you this real quick. So I've decided that Visitations needs a wider audience.
Okay.
And I am planning to go to different conventions throughout the country this year. My plan is to start this year. Okay. But I've also decided that that somebody should publish it. And I've decided that Image Comics should publish Visitations.
Yes.
And so what I am doing is, this is actually not the best one, but I've got this postcard.
Ooh.
And on the back of it, it's basically a letter to the publisher of Image Comics. And there's a space there for, basically says, while attending blank. And there's different conventions that I've been to, and there's different podcasts that I've been on, and the person will be able to fill that out. I discovered Visitations, blah, 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 blah. You guys should publish it, blah, 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 sincerely. And there is a place for their name and their email address. Yeah. And so what my plan is, I'm actually fixing the art on Visitations 1 and 2. Actually, it's fixed. I just have to get it done. But I'm planning to inundate the publisher of Image with these postcards. I've got about 300 of them.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that I'll get a lot of them filled out during the convention. And I'm actually going to ask you guys to contribute as well. I can fill your name and email out. But my plan is to basically inundate him with the cards and send not only an email with the books, but also physical copies. And then that way, I've got an audience. Yeah. Just being in Chicago, I have a mailing list of about 800 people, which is amazing. Yeah. And that's not even counting going out to like Indiana or Wisconsin or California or New York or anything else. So it's already got an audience. The audience is built in, and everybody will benefit from this.
Absolutely.
And that's my plan. Yes. We'll see how it goes. But that's where I'm kind of introducing this at C2E2.
People, if you are out at C2E2, go visit Scott, fill out a postcard, because like he said, we need to get Visitations out so everybody can see, because it's an amazing book. It's filled with history and amazing stories, spooky stuff, real stuff, all of it. Scott, your book deserves to be out in front of everybody, man. It's a great book, and I love it so much. And I will be happy to be added to the contributor list for your postcard campaign, because Image needs to pick this up.
Oh, thanks. Anybody who would like to help, all I would need is where you saw me, and anybody who's watching this, obviously, it would be the Geek Speak podcast, and a name and an email. And the only reason I need the email is to prove that it's a real, live, living being, and not just me filling this stuff out. But anyone who's uncomfortable with giving me their email but wants to give me their name, I'm happy with that too. And so anybody who wants to contribute is more than welcome to help.
Awesome stuff, buddy. My friend, tell our listeners where they can check you out on the interwebs, on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that other good stuff.
Well, let's see. My Twitter and Instagram are the same, and I believe it is, and I ought to know this because I've been on both for years, but so on Facebook, it's Scott Larson Illustration. Oh, shoot, I turned that off. On Instagram,
I have you at Scott J. Larson Art.
Okay. Yeah, it's Scott J. Larson Art, and I'm pretty sure that's what I am on Twitter as well. I've also got a blog called 15 Minutes to Midnight, which I haven't touched in 3 years. But the last posting on there is about a comic book shop in Chicago which closed, so it's cool. People should read it. And I'm on Google Plus, and I think I'm on there as Visitations Comic Book at gmail.com. I do have a YouTube, and I have been happy enough to follow your adventures on YouTube. Will,
I got to get more stuff up there.
Yeah,
working on.
Everyone's busy.
Life stuff. Who knows?
That's right.
Awesome, buddy. And you're going to be at C2E2 all the days of the con?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Correct.
Okay. Awesome, buddy.
And I'm at table J8.
Okay. So Scott, my last question for you: when you come into California, man?
I'm looking for a place to crash. If you have a couch or even a sleeping bag.
Hey, I've got a double high queen size air mattress for you.
Okay.
And it's comfortable. We'll make it happen, man.
I would love that. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to cover the country.
Yeah.
Because it's something new for me.
Sure.
And it's very costly as well. So so that's the thing that I'm still kind of weighing things on.
Yes. Well, when you figure it out, man, we'll be happy to get you back on here and announce your worldwide press tour, your nationwide press tour, and get as many people as we can to come out and see you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
My friend, please, I know you're going to stick around to talk news with us because we got some stuff to touch on. Mrs. Walker, what's up? What do you want to start? I'll let you pick tonight. What do you want to talk about first tonight?
I really feel like we have to talk about Infinity War because,
Infinity War. Blah, blah, blah.
It's so close, but
I
hope I can see it.
Yes.
I hope I don't have to wait till it's streaming to see it. Hopefully I can get one of our friends to watch The Baby so I can go see. I've been waiting 10 years for this movie. Come on.
Gosh damn it. And remember, kids, Thanos demands your silence.
Yeah. So no babies in the theater. Yes.
Not only that kind of silence, but I know this is a dig because some of the MCU celebs, like us, we get excited about Avengers movies. Probably like to the umpteenth time power being in one. You want to talk about it and tell everybody what you did in it. And some people maybe like Tom Holland and Jeremy Renner have said some things in the past early like they shouldn't have. So the Russo brothers did tweet out a very nice picture of the Infinity Gauntlet holding a nice little note that says basically don't spoil anything for anybody. It's kind of the gist of it. Which I thought was a great way to do it, and it definitely speaks to the fact that unfortunately, we live in that time where people still like to spoil things for some reason for other people. I don't know, whatever.
Sometimes I don't think people mean to do it. Like if they get so excited about something and they just like let it slip.
I know a few that do mean to do it. So
yes, there are people that do mean to do it. Like
yes.
I had somebody message me. It was like I thank goodness I've already seen Last Jedi, but actually messaged me. Like a picture from it, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like you
asshole.
Yeah, it was on my cosplay page, to be fair, so it wasn't like it was like a good friend or anything. But why try to ruin stuff for people? Like, what is your problem?
Yes. but oddly enough, along with this whole where the hell is Hawkeye thing that's been going on ever since we've been getting all the promotional stuff for Infinity War, and Jeremy Renner tweeted with a response that said, "I say nothing because I know nothing." How much does he actually know? There's been talk that a lot of some of the celebrities didn't actually get the whole script, so they don't honestly know what's going on in the movie. I'm sure he's probably one of them. from his. Yeah,
that's relatively normal for big blockbusters. A lot of times the actors don't get the full script for this reason.
Yes. Now here's my question, and I'll pose this to you too, Scott. After Christina tells me, why do you think we haven't seen much of Hawkeye in any of the trailers or the posters or anything like that?
I legitimately thought it was because he maybe wasn't going to be in it, or like they were going to try to like low key off screen maybe kill him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have to wonder now if they aren't going to utilize him in the movie in a way that's really, really good. Like, it surprised me in, oh my God, which movie was it? Was it Avengers 2? Was that right? That's where it shows like his family and
yeah.
All the movies are bleeding together now for me. So I'm like, I can't remember what fucking movie.
Yeah, that was Age of Ultron. Yeah.
Okay, so like I didn't feel like it was going to be that centered around Hawkeye. So I don't think Infinity War will be, but I have to wonder if they're not going to do something really cool with him, and that's why, or he won't be in it at all.
Yeah.
But why would he tweet about it now? So now I'm confused.
Scott, what's your theory on the whole lack of Hawkeye situation?
You know what? A number of years ago, I decided that I was going to stay away from all promotional material for these movies, and so I haven't seen a trailer at all.
Okay.
I've glanced real quickly at a poster, and I can't tell you what was on there. And so, for all I know, he's there.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Yes.
He's not.
Well, you haven't seen it because he's not there.
Okay.
There was a joke one where they had the entire crew like on the top of his head.
Yeah.
That one was funny.
That big one where they had like everybody in it. They replaced every single person with different poses of Hawkeye. And apparently there's a theater somewhere that actually has that up as their like lobby poster of Infinity War is the one of just Hawkeye, which I find
that theater deserves an award because that's
yes. But we know he's in it. Okay, we know he's in it. Okay, he was there. There was a couple of shots of him in either Entertainment Weekly or Empire. I can't remember which magazine exactly, but he's there. But obviously, he's like Christina said. He's either got some big moment he's going to have where maybe he's not going to be in for much of it and just come at the right time kind of thing, or who knows, maybe they're just totally trying to throw us for a loop, but we don't have to wait much longer to find out. Yes. But that being said, it sounds like they're still putting the finishing touches on the movie over at Camp Marvel. Also along with the music, which apparently composer Alan Silvestri just talked about that he just finished scoring Infinity War last week, which I mean still blows my mind that this late in the game they still finish stuff in movies nowadays. It's so crazy. It's like, man, they can do things up until like the last week, I think. So
sometimes they do.
It's nuts. Christina, you being somebody who really appreciates a good solid movie score like me, where do you put Alan Silvestri's scores as far as in the Marvel universe? Like, does it just scream at you when you hear some of those notes and from some of his music?
For me, yes, but there was like this video circulating a while ago about how musical scores, especially like in the Marvel universe, just aren't that good. I don't know if you saw any of you guys saw that video, saying a lot of people are using generic pieces, which is true. A lot of them are. Yeah. And they were having people hum different themes from different movies and television shows, and no one could remember any of the Marvel ones. I'm like, the Avengers one, like that one.
That's a lie.
Like that one I can actually hum, and I've done it before. No, it's not as easy like it has to do as like Star Wars or something, but I still know it. And I hear tones of like the Avengers and stuff and like other trailers for things and stuff. And I really like it. I think that it definitely has that superhero swell to it. And I really love it.
Yes. Mr. Larson.
Well, he did that Captain America First Avenger score.
Yes.
And I actually think that that's one of the better scores.
Yeah.
And so I think he's right up there. The other guy who I thought did a good job was Patrick Doyle, who did the first Thor movie.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
And he did that fourth Harry Potter, which I didn't really care for, the music. But I thought with that Thor theme, it was really great. And that last Thor movie where they brought it back, even though it was for like 5 seconds, it was like, oh, good. So I don't know. I think there have been some good scores, but it's like these movies, like Christina was saying, they start to blend into each other after a while. I was counting the movies on my shelf. There's 18 Marvel movies now.
That sounds about right.
And is it AMC which is showing all of them? at their
Yes.
theater, like right before Infinity War.
Scott, if I could have gotten the time off and wanted to spend the $200 for a ticket for me and my wife, I probably would have done it.
By the time you get to Infinity War, I would think you'd be like a boxer. You'd be punch drunk. It would be like,
Yeah.
what would the point be? You wouldn't be able to enjoy it.
You know what I did? I have done one of the marathons, and it was when Civil War came out, and it was like Avengers 1 and 2, Captain America 1 and 2, and then Civil War. So there's still quite a few movies, but yeah, man, you're not kidding. Like, I think we were getting a little antsy by about the third half movie. Yes, we had to go have some lunch. We did get some cool like medals though that were like, I made it through the marathon, which is kind of cool. But I think that's really but what's one of the big things that they've done the last couple of years with those marathons, and specifically talking about the El Capitan Theater, which is where I'm going to go see Infinity War, and it's the big it's one of the big theaters in downtown Hollywood that I'm pretty sure is now owned by Disney since the whole Marvel acquisition and thing. Is they have like a lot of stuff going on in between each movies, and last year they had, I want to say like 3 or 4 of the stars from different movies show up and talk in between the movies and things like that. So, I mean, to do it there, that would be my main draw for doing that. I mean, I have all the movies on my shelf too. I could see them at home and not spend the $200, but that would have been the main draw for me to do that. So I get why, and at least in that case, people want to do it, but man,
like how many literal days would that be? Like how many?
It starts like Wednesday afternoon and goes all the way till Infinity War comes out. Yeah,
which actually doesn't seem like that bad.
Yeah, if you watch it,
make sure you get up and move around, folks. Don't get blood clots if you decide to go do that.
Yeah,
and eat, hydrate.
Yes, definitely. But Christina, I don't know if you remembered this, and I know I talked to Scott about it, so I'm going to ask Scott this question first. We talked last week. I said I wanted to get your guys' feedback on what were, because Scott asked me this. We'll say we don't have to narrow it down to just one, but what are some of your favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movies over the last 10 years? Mr. Larson, I'm going to let you go first tonight for this one.
The movies or the moments?
Well, I mean, like moments out of the movies of the MCU.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I was trying to boil it down into just one. And the funny thing is, before I tell you what it is,
yeah,
I have a friend, a work friend who continually tries to rank these movies, and it's like, this is one great big movie. You can't rank it anymore. It's over.
Right.
You can't. This isn't like Batman 1989 versus like
Dark Knight Batman.
It's just it's not. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think that and when I saw this in the theater, it should have been a better moment than it ended up being. Mm-hmm. But when Ant-Man grew into Giant Man in Civil War, yes, that was a fantastic moment.
Yes,
that was one of those like, oh my god! But the theater that I went to, the audience was like, it's like they're on lewds or something. It was just like there was like no reaction. Yeah, it was just like, yeah, okay. Cool. I mean, that whole airport fight scene was very, very cool.
Yes.
I think that the end scene in the Avengers, in the first Avengers movie, was also very good, especially the stuff with the Hulk.
Yeah. There's definitely a thing that happens every time I've seen Avengers subsequently afterwards, where you just see them all, back to back in a circle, and they're playing that awesome song from Alan Silvestri, and it's just like, yeah, you see them like all together, and it's like da 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 da, and you're like, oh my god, they're on screen together. It's like, no matter how many times I've seen that, I still get a chill, and I get like stupid, like nerd giddy when I see that movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. Yes. Yeah. What, did you have any other tough moments that were hard to boil down past, Scott?
I don't know. It's tough. It's like even that last Thor movie had so many good things in it.
Yeah.
The Winter Soldier. There's some movies that I need to go back and see again in the theater. The Winter Soldier was one of them. Ant-Man was another one. Mostly because it flew under the radar. I thought that the stuff in the second Guardians movie. All that Jack Kirby stuff. I was at a convention and some of the people in Artist Alley were talking, and they were talking about the Fantastic Four movies, and I'm like, you know what the best Fantastic Four movie was? Guardians of the Galaxy 2, because they had this scene that was right out of John Byrne's Fantastic Four, and he didn't even get credited with it, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much in all of these movies, and I think that the universe, once you got past like the Hulk movie and that second Iron Man movie, those are not my favorites.
Right.
But once you get past that, once you get into Captain America and Thor and the Avengers, I mean, the movies just take off and they don't even look back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the way it is.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. Christina, I know we talked about one of your moments, but what else you got?
So, as most people have heard me say millions of times before on the show and probably in person talking about comic books, I have never liked Cap. Ever. Yeah. I have always hated Steve Rogers. I can't stand him. He bothers me.
It's like you hate Scott Summers.
Yeah. Although I used to love him when I was younger, but I have never liked Cap. Ever. And I hate the MCU for making me love him because Chris Evans and the way that they wrote. So the entire first half of the first Avenger surprisingly got me completely invested and to actually really emotionally be invested in Steve Rogers, which pissed me off because I didn't think that was possible.
I want to hate you.
Yeah, it was so well done because I'm like, I wanted to protect this sweet kid before he actually, got all buff. And even then, he's still he's such a nice, genuinely good human being and wants to do good for people. And the whole I can do this all day actually tears me up now. Yeah. So there's this I know you guys aren't watching. You guys don't watch the trailer though.
It's okay.
He doesn't say it in the trailer. There's just a scene with him and Thanos, and that for some reason that line popped into my head, and I was like, "Don't you fucking dare!
Yeah,
don't you dare, Marvel!" And I'm like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Don't you kill Cap?" Because I'd be like, "Whatever." Usually,
right.
So that the first half of that entire movie was great. The second half, I actually thought was, Iron Man 1, literally all of it. There's not a single scene in that movie that I'm just not like, this is.
I was gonna say, damn it, Christine, if you say my moment.
The entire movie is so good. It's hard to pick one. I will say that it's probably my favorite villain actually, and I had kind of forgotten about that until I watched it again recently. Because Vulture became actually my favorite villain.
Yeah.
Recently, he was so nuanced and great, and then I forgot about Obadiah and he was fantastic though in Iron Man 1. He was very similar. He took my Avengers one.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Thor, besides Thor 1, because I do love that one too, because he has always been one of my most favorite Marvel characters. I grew up reading it. But Thor Ragnarok had I've watched it 3 times now, and every time I watch it, not only do I laugh harder thinking that the jokes will get old or whatever, they don't. They get funnier to me. Is because it reminds me of the old Jack Kirby comics and some of the sillier things that Thor used to do. So a lot of people that don't like it, I'm still convinced that they haven't actually picked up a legitimately old Thor comic book. But please, kind sir, don't cut my hair. For some reason, that scene sends me to hysterics every single time.
Yeah.
The Ant-Man, there's lots of an Ant-Man too with the Thomas the Train for some reason was also sticks out in my head. It was really well done. And Guardians 1, Groot, that scene, I have to leave the room because I get super teary-eyed.
My wife cries every time.
I can't do it. It's so, and I know that it's going to be okay, but it's one of those same as when you watch Gandalf die in Fellowship of the Ring, you're just Gandalf. Because technically Gandalf the Great is dead.
Yes.
You get Gandalf the White later, and he's Gandalf, but it's different. Right. And then in Guardians 2 with Yondu, I hate that scene makes me every time choked up because the whole movie's pretty lighthearted and you can kind of and for some reason that scene was I was baking the other day and it was on in the background and I was like, I'm not watching it, it'll be fine. And I could hear it and I was like,
too late.
So those are kind of some of mine. I'm sure there's other ones in my head, I just can't think of all of them. Seeing Black Widow do her cool stuff, and I know that Iron Man 2 is a terrible movie because it is. But seeing Black Widow do cool stuff for the first time was really neat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, agreed. My you know that some of my moments are going to be from Iron Man 1
Oh yeah.
because you know it's obvious. Specifically, one of my favorite moments in that movie is when Tony is working on the Mark III suit, which is the first time we see him wear the red and gold in the MCU, and he's watching that newscast that's talking about Golmira and what's happening in that war-torn country, and how there's a child that's calling out for their mother or their sibling and they can't find them, and talking about the devastation. And you can almost see something in the way that Robert Downey Jr. portrayed that moment. You can almost see just something in him just completely flip. And to me, like, that was like one of the definitive scenes right there where you really just saw him become a hero. He went from this Tony Stark to this Tony Stark. And obviously there's been a lot of character development with his character specifically throughout the MCU, that he's definitely a completely different person from what he was. And he's still Tony in, in a lot of aspects, but I think that moment right there was really when he became a hero, and he knew that he couldn't just sit by anymore. He couldn't just allow the stuff that he had put out in the world, his company, his father's company, his family's company, he couldn't just allow that stuff to just be his legacy. He had to do something else. And so that alone, and that whole scene where he ends up in that village, and he saves those people from being killed by the terrorists, that was just a very, to my mind, one of the things that I remember just very vividly about that movie. And every time I see it, I'm just kind of like, huh? So, one of my all-time favorite scenes, the Civil War fight between him and Steve and Bucky. That's kind of an obvious one, and I think not only because of what's going on in the action, but because you understand how important that scene is for those characters. You understand it's not a fight between, we'll say, a good guy and a bad guy. It's not somebody fighting a Thanos or a Baron von Strucker. It's two guys who were brothers. They were friends. They're family. And if you understand what it means for Tony to say that somebody is his friend is a huge deal. So for him to be in that moment and fighting that person is devastating. You just kind of like know where they're both at, in their brain space, and you're kind of like, that's a crappy moment, but it was so well done. It's hard to watch, you know what I mean? And even going in there, I remember Emily going, I'm not going to be able to watch this. I can't see them fighting each other. It's terrible.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Well, the scene what I'm going to point out too in that particular scene, for me, was when Cap takes his shield, smashes it in Tony's chest.
Right.
Because while it's not actually connected to his heart anymore, like it would have been in Iron Man 1, there was still like a tone of, holy shit, Cap might have actually killed Tony. Like there was that level of, it, like, for some reason that particular action like really hit me in the feels. That Cap would do that.
So I agree. And then my other kind of cheesy funny moment of the MCU is the when Tony gets pushed out of the window in Avengers 1, and you see these suit just kind of,
that was very cool,
come out of the missile and attach to him. I was like, it's the raddest thing ever. We keep getting these little pieces, and I know you guys, because I know what you guys are talking about, of like, we finally going to see something close to the bleeding edge armor for Tony, and I think it's like that's kind of what they're hinting at in Infinity War. So so I'm excited to see that. But those were some of my favorite moments, and I'm excited to see what ridiculously amazing new favorite moments we're going to add to our list after Infinity War comes out. And Scott, I, like you, even though I love my Avengers more than anything, I have tried to watch as very little as I can as far as trailers. I watched the first big one, and that's all I've seen so far. I haven't watched any of the TV spots. I didn't watch the last one. Yeah.
You did watch Infinity War trailer finally?
No, just the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm finding that not watching trailers, if you go into this stuff blind as possible. Now, as an example, if I'm sitting in a movie theater, I'm watching the trailer. There's nothing I can do about that, and that's kind of fun too. But with Ragnarok, imagine how great that the arena scene would have been had you not known the Hulk was coming out of there. But it was in every single trailer.
Right.
And it's one of those. And then the other thing was that Spider-Man movie. I didn't watch any of the trailers from that, and my wife did.
Okay.
And so they showed like everything. We went and saw the movie, and Spider-Man's my favorite character. So so I really wanted to not have anything spoiled. And the next morning I watched the trailers. I'm like, oh my God, they showed that. They showed that. I had no idea that Captain America was in there. You know, I had no idea on any of that stuff and how much Tony Stark was in it. And my wife knew because she saw all of it and I missed it all.
Right.
And I'm really glad I missed it all.
Yes. That's what I'm hoping for, Scott. I just kind of want to be wowed by everything, especially as long as we've been waiting for this movie. So, friends, let's drop a couple of just real quick. We'll call it the round robin news round. Linda Carter, aka everyone's favorite original Wonder Woman, got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Christina, thoughts about Miss Linda Carter and getting her star?
She was one of my first heroes growing up. I love her so much, so it makes me really happy. I thought she already had one. Same with Mark Hamill. Like I thought they already had stars.
Yeah.
I'm really glad she has one.
Yes. Scott, talk to us about Wonder Woman.
I think it's great. You know, I watched that show when I was growing up as well. I don't remember much of it. And it's one of those shows that I don't want to go back to because it's like I was like 7 years old when it came out. And I can't, and you know, it was what it was, but I don't want to go back to it because I don't want to be like, oh, this is cheesy. This is stupid.
It's probably very dated, you think?
You know, I don't want to like look at it like the old Spider-Man TV show. You know, it's just like he's throwing a net over people. Yeah. But I think that's great. And you know, the thing about her that I don't quite understand was why she wasn't in the new Wonder Woman movie. Yeah. I mean, I guess she had like scheduling problems, which is okay, but I think she really should have been in there. Yeah. They should have found a way to stick her in there at one point or another.
Should have had some sort of cameo or other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Friends, Black Panther has now passed Jurassic World at the domestic box office and has now conquered Frozen globally. Sorry, Frozen. We're all about to just let it go because Black Panther just kind of knocked you out of the way a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's see. It says, I was going to give you some numbers here, guys. And it just, number 3, I think. Becoming the 4th biggest movie of all time in the States. Only Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Avatar, and Titanic have bigger hauls as far as North America goes. So, man, where is it going to stop? Does it need to? We love it, but Scott, did you see Black Panther?
Oh yeah.
What do you think about it, man?
You know what? There are two things about it. Number one, it wasn't anything what I was expecting. Mm-hmm. Like what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't quite that. Yeah. I thought the visuals were fantastic. You know, I thought, what's his face? Michael B. Jordan? Is that his name? I thought he was great. Yeah. I thought he was really, really, really great. There were so many cool things in that movie. The story itself was kind of like a typical movie. It's like, okay, you got the hero, he loses, then he comes back, blah, 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 blah. But I thought the movie was great. I had a good time with it. I thought it was visually fantastic. And I do like the fact that with all of this stuff now, they're putting more Kirby in it, and more Kirby and more Kirby. And I'm more of a Ditko person than a Kirby person, but I think that's really cool. And some of those sand scenes were great. The fact that they didn't take the time to throw Steve Rogers in there or anything else was great too. I mean, I wanted to see it, but I'm glad that they didn't feel the need to do that. Yes. And it was the you know, there was like that joke that rival like tribe guy did.
Yeah,
I thought that was really out of place in the movie. But because but they played it straight too. Yes. You know, there was a lot of criticism with Ragnarok was it was a little too jokey, and I get that. I understand that criticism. I don't know how I feel about that. Mm-hmm. You can go both ways on it. You know, I with some of the smart remarks that people make in these movies, it's like after a while, it's like Black Widow, shut up already. We get it. You're too cool. Okay. But that being said, they played that movie straight.
Yes.
It was completely different from what anyone expected. And I think it's great that it's making money. Is it the best superhero movie I've ever seen? No.
Yeah.
But for what it was, I thought it was fantastic.
Awesome. I think it. Christina, there. We know that Ryan Johnson is going to be helming a new Star Wars trilogy that's going to have nothing to do with the Skywalker saga. And recently, he was doing an interview where that specific subject got brought up. And tell me, how do you think? Because for the most part, Star Wars, as we know it, has some sort of connection to one of either the Skywalkers or the Solos. What do you think are they going to have to do with a new Star Wars trilogy in order to make it successful without tying it into those big names?
So a lot of people were thinking maybe if they did like Old Republic or something that perhaps it could work. But I think they've already said that would not be the case.
Sure.
Or do it so far into the future that it's removed from that aspect of it. The thing is, the Star Wars universe is so huge. There are so many stories you can tell that have not fuck all to do with the Skywalkers. And I'm actually okay. Like, as much as like Luke is my favorite character, and I love that, I like the idea, which I thought that was kind of set up in Last Jedi, is that it doesn't have to be about a legacy. You can still have that legacy. You can still watch the original trilogy. You can still watch the prequels. You can still watch the sequels that are coming out. But I think that it's good to move away from that. I think that there's so many stories to tell. I think it's going to be a good thing. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with it. I still maintain that I would love to see like a live action X-Wing Rogue Squadron TV show, something like Battlestar Galactica, but with X-Wings.
Sure.
So I'm not sure what they're going to, which I think there is a TV show also that a live action one was announced, but I think that this new trilogy will be good. I think that Rian Johnson, despite his criticism he's been receiving from a lot of salty fans, I think he can do really well in telling stories.
Yes.
That he's allowed to complete freedom with it. It's really hard to be chained to a trilogy movie. I don't know that I would want that burden. That's scary. I mean, look at JJ and him both, how much hate they've received.
Right.
It's God. So yeah, I think it'll be cool. I'm really interested to see how that fleshes out. And he is a good writer, and I like his other movies. So
yeah,
I think it's in good hands.
Scott, what would you want to see out of a new Star Wars trilogy?
You know what? If I'm slightly concerned that they're overloading us with Star Wars stuff, with the amount of movies that are coming out. But if they're going to do it, and if they want to do it right, what I would do is I would use the Star Trek TV shows as a basis. You know, you had The Next Generation, but then you had DS9, which was completely different, and it was a better show. It was a really, really, really good show, and you can look at another part of the universe and not even have to deal with the characters. I mean, if you're going to do it, make it different and just split it off. Don't even mention all the other stuff. But I think that, or do something where you tie it in later on. But I think that there are possibilities. The issue that I think that a lot of people have is they can't get out of the original trilogy. Right. And I had I think I was watching Screen Junkies News or something earlier, and they were talking about that. And it's true. You have the Rogue One, which is a movie I really enjoyed. You have the Solo movie. You know, as long as the stuff is tied to the original trilogy, it's almost like they think that's what people want to see. I'd like to see something completely new. You know, if you know, the end of The Last Jedi is right, where he's got with the slave child who could use the Force and everything else. If they're going to go in that direction, go in that direction. Don't look back. Don't look at Finn and Poe. Don't look at Princess Leia. Don't look at Luke. Just go and have an adventure and see what happens. You know, the only thing that I would ask is that there was a consistent beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
You know, that things are planned out beforehand.
Right. Let's have the Adventures of Broom Kid.
Sure.
I'd be okay with that.
Broom Kid.
Well, you know what? No one ever. I don't. Maybe people have mentioned this and I missed it. But you know that child was a slave. That's how Anakin started out too.
Yep.
True, my friend. Too true. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it for the news. We all the big DC CW shows have been renewed for another season, as well as Riverdale, Supernatural, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Jane the Virgin, and Dynasty. I don't think there's any surprise. Clearly, people aren't tired of watching superhero shows on the CW, and I think the shows like especially Black Lightning. Man, I cannot get enough of that show right now. I'm really excited to see what they have in store for season 2. So it's all about it. All about the superheroes still, I guess, Christina.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
Now, are you guys still watching all the shows?
I'm a couple weeks behind, but I'm watching all the CW stuff. Yeah.
Expecting a baby is hindering my life, my enjoyment of entertainment a little bit, but that's okay. I'll eventually catch up.
Yes. Oh, all right, friends. That's a good spot to wrap up tonight. Mr. Larson, as our esteemed guest, would you like to drop a final thought for the evening and drop one more time your social media, sir?
Sure. I can be reached at visitationscomicbook@gmail.com. Yeah. My social media on Instagram and Twitter is Scott J. Larson Art at whatever. And Visitations 3 is done. I have a whole box that have not been taken out anywhere yet. So we'll see how many I come back from C2E2 with.
Yes, I hope you sell them all, Scott.
Well, you know what? That one of the things is I do have to keep going back to print on this stuff.
That's
great.
And so last year at C2E2, I sold everything.
Yeah.
And in fact, some of my table displays, someone bought those. Like these cardboard cutouts. It was pretty funny.
They're like, we want them. Mm-hmm. And Scott, you said they can go on Amazon to find the coloring book, right?
Yes, it's Visitations coloring book.
Yes. I need me one of them. I feel like I don't cover color enough in my lifetime.
But one final thought: read as many comic books, not necessarily mine, but comic books that are out there. I recently parted with my very big collection for various reasons, and what it did was it got me interested in all of it again. And so some of it I got back, some of it I was getting back in like trades or whatever. And as I'm looking at some of these stories, it's like, God, if I hadn't gotten rid of the collection, I never would have read this again. Yeah. And so go and dip into your collection and read the stuff you haven't looked at in 5, 10, 15 years, because it's just as good, if not better, than you remember it.
That's good advice. I should do that.
Damn it. Serious. Scott, thank you, as always, my friend, for being on the show. We always love having you on and talking to you. And I can't wait to hear what's next from you, my friend.
Well, we'll see if we can do a Halloween show again this year.
Oh, you know it. You know we're always ready for it. my favorite time of year to tell ghost stories with you, my friend. Christina, tell us, Madame, your final thought for the week, and where listeners can go be seeing you.
Go see Ready Player One. I really liked it. I actually have not read the book, and went in kind of not really knowing a ton about it, and ended up really enjoying the crap out of it. So I'll probably read the book now. And I also downloaded and am playing Far Cry 5. I've only gotten like an hour into the game though, because life. But the game is beautiful, and it's an interesting storyline. You're basically fighting against a creepy religious cult, and it's pretty fun. And if you want to follow me, you could follow me on Instagram and Twitter at boobafett83, and then on Facebook, my cosplay page, which I post a lot of Star Wars stuff mostly. It's Boba Fett, and it's a picture of me in a Rebel pilot suit. Ignore the other imposters. I was the first Boba Fett.
There's only one. It's like the Highlander.
Yeah. Yep, and that's pretty much it. And I agree with Scott. Read comic books. That's now that we're unpacking things, getting the baby's room ready, I found my entire old stash of comics when I was growing up. So my Gambit and Wolverine comics and stuff that are hiding away that I haven't touched since I was probably about 11 years old. I'm gonna take some time and try to go through those.
Yes, do so, my friend. Tell me exciting stuff that you read that maybe I can read too. So I need to read more comics. I actually did read 2. I actually read Doomsday Clock issue 2 and 3. I forgot to pick up 4 this week, so I got to go pick it up. But it's pretty interesting. I like the direction I think it's going to. So I'll have to get 4 this week and give you guys a review.
Yes.
For next week. So I did actually pick up a book and read 2 this week. 3 actually, because I reread Scott's book. But all sorts of good things. My official final thought, because today is April 4th, which happens to be the birthday of one of the most prolific figures in the MCU. We're talking about the man who helped to kickstart the MCU. We're talking about the one, the only Robert Downey Jr. Of course, that man is one of the we'll say celebrity superstars that have inspired my look, my costuming, my collecting, lots of different aspects of my life. So who knows if you'll ever hear this, but Robert, thank you for all that you've brought to my life, all the awesome moments in the MCU and to infinity and beyond, and all the other cool stuff you do for charity and just for people in general. Thank you. Happy birthday. And thanks for being Iron Man. And if we don't see you doing that too much longer, we'll always have the memories, right, friends? It's good stuff. You can check us out on the Twitter sphere at _Geekside Pod, which is our show Twitter. The main hub from the GWW is at the _GWW. And of course, check out the website where we're always posting the latest and greatest in the world of geek. We thank you for listening. And if you watched, for watching. And of course, we'll catch you next week when we'll be back to walk on that wild side, or that side we like to call, what side, Christina? What side, Scott?
The
Geekside.